Fools. They thought fire would finish you, that if they hurled you into the abyss, the heat would melt your spirit into compliance. But they didn't know. Hell isn't a place for the forsaken. It's a forge. And you didn't burn. You became the flame. They cast you into the pit, thinking the darkness would consume you. But the shadows bent around you like servants kneeling before a king they once mocked. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You watched. You studied the patterns of pain, the rhythm of betrayal, and you carved every scar into memory like scripture. While they slept peacefully in their delusions, the devil walked beside you, not as your tormentor, but as your witness. He saw something they didn't. He leaned close in the silence and whispered, "You're not mine to torture. You're mine to unleash." See, the real torment doesn't come from flames or chains. It comes from knowing someone survived what should have broken them, and now walks the earth unhinged. You weren't just thrown into hell, you were tailored by it. They sent you down thinking you'd crumble, but last night, the devil made a call, not to you, to them. You were no longer a prisoner in the pit. They were now fugitives from the storm they birthed. Their hands, once bold with betrayal, started trembling without reason. Mirrors started misbehaving. Phones rang at midnight, with no one on the other side, just static, just breathing. Their dreams turned into interrogations. The guilt they buried deep started scratching at the lid. And still, you said nothing. Your silence became a sermon. Your absence became louder than your screams ever could have been. They laughed when you stumbled. They whispered when you broke. But they forgot. Even a shattered sword can still kill. And you, you didn't just survive. You took your broken pieces, welded them in the inferno, and turned yourself into a weapon of reckoning. You walk differently now, not with pride, but with prophecy. The ground remembers the weight of your footsteps. Even the wind seems to hesitate when you pass, unsure if you're a ghost or something worse. They see you now in places they never expected, in the eyes of strangers, in the shadows of hallways, in the lyrics of songs they can't turn off. Because you've become their echo, and the echo always returns louder. They fed off your pain like vultures at a feast. Each betrayal was a course, each lie a toast. They thought the feast would last forever, that you'd remain the main dish in their cruel celebration. But they never noticed the wine turned to blood, or that the candles flickered with something more than wax. Because while they dined, you plotted, you evolved. You became something not meant to be pitied, but feared. They were dancing at your funeral while you were learning necromancy with your rage. They buried you shallow, thinking dirt was enough to silence a soul like yours. But you didn't just rise, you resurrected. And resurrection is never quiet. Now they flinch at kindness. Every smile feels like a setup. Every door they open seems rigged. Because the guilt they wear is visible only to you, it glows like veins of fire under porcelain skin. You see it, and you wait. Because revenge isn't served cold, it's served patient. You don't need to strike first. You just need to make sure they know you're breathing, that you're somewhere out there, rewatching the reel of their sins, like a critic sharpening knives with every frame. They don't know when it's coming. That's the point. The not knowing is the poison. The suspense is the noose. And it tightens every time they see your name unspoken in someone else's eyes. Hell didn't destroy you. It curated you. The chaos didn't consume you, it instructed you. And now you don't just walk among mortals, you haunt them. Not like a ghost chained to a past, but like a prophecy they tried to burn. Every attempt they made to silence you became a hymn of your return. Every insult they spat is now a curse hanging over their heads, and they feel it in their chest, in their spine, in the way their stomach knots at 3:33 a.m. because they remember the last words they said when they left you to rot. They remember the smirk, the shoulder turn, the mockery, and now that same smirk creeps onto your face, not out of humor, but justice. You don't need to confront them, not yet. Let them unravel in private. Let them pretend they're fine in public, while their insides scream your name. Let them glance over their shoulder for no reason. Let them check the locks, twice, thrice, until it becomes a compulsion. Let their calm be interrupted by the silence you left behind. The kind of silence that tastes like forewarning. You are the whisper in the room when no one's talking. The sudden breeze when all windows are closed. You are not back for revenge. You are back as the consequence. And oh, how beautifully that word echoes. There are bruises you never showed, wounds you never voiced, nights you died a little and still woke up pretending you hadn't. And they thought that was weakness. But pain, real pain, it teaches you how to wear masks better than any actor. They thought they fooled you, but it was always the other way around. You were documenting, storing, memorizing every syllable of the betrayal until it became poetry carved into vengeance. And now, you write their fate in chapters soaked in the ink of their own intentions. Because they didn't just betray you, they gave you direction. You walk this world not as someone who escaped hell, but as someone licensed by it. You are authorized by agony, anointed by suffering. And now, no God can stop what's been set in motion. Not because you hate them, but because the universe doesn't ignore unpaid debts. You don't need to lift a finger. You are the trigger. They tripped the wire the night they threw you into the fire. Now every breath they take feels borrowed, every smile forced, every laugh haunted. The devil doesn't need to drag them down. He already called last night. He just needed your permission. And here you are, not broken, not bitter, just aware, watching, breathing, waiting. Because you know they'll see your face again, whether through tears, screams, or silence. You know they'll hear your voice again, not in their ears, but in the way the world shifts around them. The wind doesn't howl the same. Lights flicker just a second too long. Their reflection lingers when they walk away. Because you're not a person to them anymore. You're a reckoning, a reminder, an aftertaste that never fades. And when they fall, oh, they will, you won't need to lift them up or pull them down. The weight of what they did to you is already doing the job. You just need to stand still and let gravity handle the justice. The same gravity they laughed at when you were at your lowest. The same force they ignored as they danced above your buried hopes. But gravity doesn't forget, and neither do you. So tonight, sleep easy. Not because the war is over, but because the battlefield has shifted. You no longer have to chase them. They're already running from a version of you they created, but can no longer understand. Let them run. Let them tremble, because the fire didn't kill you. It crowned you. And part two, well, part two is when you stop watching and begin collecting. Now, they're running. Running from a version of you they forged in their cruelty, but never comprehended. Part one was the silent warning, a shadow creeping over their complacency. But part two is where the storm breaks, where the fire you swallowed roars back with a voice they can't ignore, where the devil's call becomes a summons, not just whispered in the dark, but shouted across their crumbling sanctuaries. Because you see, vengeance isn't a sprint. It's a slow unraveling, a methodical dance with chaos that leaves no step untracked, no fault unpunished. You begin where they least expect it, not with thunder, but with a quiet disruption, a misplaced word, a cracked smile in a room full of strangers, a glance that lingers too long in their peripheral vision. You don't chase them. You infiltrate their worlds like a virus, subtle and insidious. Every secret they buried, every betrayal they disguised under layers of false loyalty, starts unraveling thread by thread. You watch their facades fracture. The polished surfaces reveal the cracks they spent years painting over. And in those fractures, you find your entry, soft, unassuming, but deadly. They speak of peace, but their voices shake. They claim control, but their hands tremble. You see it in the way their eyes dart to shadows, in the restless pacing in rooms that once felt like safe havens. They can't escape the echoes of the hell you endured, because you carry hell inside you now. It's a living thing, fierce and unforgiving. And with every move they make, every lie they spin to protect their fragile egos, you become the truth they fear most. Not the truth they want to hear, but the truth they must face. Remember, revenge is a slow poison, one that courses through the veins of their existence until it's all that remains. You don't need to rush. Let the anticipation build like a tightening noose. Let the tension coil so tightly around them that even their dreams become prisons. The very fabric of their reality begins to tear, not with violence, but with dread. Because knowing you're out there, waiting, watching, is a torment unlike any other. It's the silent scream between breaths, the cold sweat on a summer night. It's the invisible wound that won't heal. You exploit their fears with surgical precision. You become the shadow in their reflection, the chill in the air when the sun shines brightest. They try to convince themselves it's paranoia, but you are no illusion. You are the reckoning they wrote off as a ghost story, the nightmare they told their children to keep them obedient. You are the reckoning they ignored when they dismissed your pain as weakness. And now, that reckoning has a name, a face, and an unbreakable will. But your revenge isn't just about inflicting pain, it's about reclaiming power. Every step you take is a reclaiming of the pieces they shattered. Every breath you draw is a declaration that you still exist, undiminished by their cruelty. You rebuild your kingdom from the ruins they left behind, not with bricks or mortar, but with the unyielding spirit forged in fire. And as you rise, so does the chaos around them. Their world starts to collapse under the weight of their own sins. And you stand at the center, not as a victim, but as a sovereign. There's a dark poetry in this process, the way destruction births creation, the way chaos carves paths to order. You become the author of their downfall, writing their fate with lines dipped in the ink of betrayal and justice. They will try to fight it, to silence you with threats and lies. But your resilience is a blade sharper than any threat. You wield your scars like armor, your silence like a weapon, your very existence like a challenge. And with every failed attempt to stop you, their fear grows, a wild thing that consumes reason and invites madness. You remember the nights spent in darkness, the moments when hope was a flicker barely clinging to life. Those moments are now your fuel, their desperation, your blueprint. You don't seek to destroy out of hatred, but to balance scales long tipped against you. Your revenge is not chaos for chaos's sake. It is precision forged in pain. It is the art of turning suffering into strength, betrayal into strategy, and despair into dominance. And in this art, you are a master. Yet, amidst the darkness, there is a strange kind of grace. You learn to dance with your demons, to bend without breaking, to laugh in the face of ruin, not because you find humor in it, but because you have transcended the need for fear. The devil's call, that once seemed a curse, becomes a summons to power, a declaration that you are no longer prey, but predator. And this transformation terrifies them more than any scream or fight could. Because a predator doesn't need to roar, it only needs to stalk. They try to hide behind walls of wealth, status, and false allies. But these walls are fragile against the storm you've become. You infiltrate their circles, not as an enemy, but as a presence too persistent to ignore. You turn their allies into doubters, their plans into chaos, their confidence into panic. You are the crack in their armor, the fault line beneath their feet. And when the world they built on lies begins to crumble, you watch not with satisfaction, but with the calm assurance of inevitability. In the quiet moments between their unraveling, you reflect on the journey from victim to avenger. You understand now that hell was never a punishment, it was a crucible. And in that crucible, you were remade. You are no longer the person they tried to break. You are something more, something darker, something stronger, something that refuses to be forgotten. The devil didn't just call last night. He called for a reckoning, and you answered. As the night deepens, you prepare for the final phase, the part where patience gives way to action, where the waiting ends and the collecting begins. Because revenge isn't just about settling scores. It's about restoring balance. It's about making them understand, in ways they never thought possible, the cost of their betrayal. You carry their fears like a cloak, their mistakes like weapons, and their downfall like a promise. The world watches, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. But you feel it, the tension, the anticipation, the slow burn of justice taking hold. They will stumble, falter, and fall. Not because you hunted them down, but because the weight of their sins finally crushed them. And when they do, you won't need to gloat or shout. The silence that follows will speak louder than any words. Part 2 closes not with an ending, but a promise. A promise that the story is far from over, that the devil's call was just the beginning of a reckoning that will shake the foundations of their world. And as the first light of dawn breaks, you stand ready, not as a victim, but as a force of nature, calm, collected, and unstoppable. The devil called last night. They answered with fear. And you? You answered with fire. They thought the storm was over when dawn broke, that the devil's call had been nothing more than a dark echo fading into the light. But they were wrong. The night was merely a prologue, a sinister prelude to the reckoning that would consume their world. Because now, in the final act, the devil's call is no longer a whisper, it is a roar, a relentless thunderclap that shatters their fragile illusions and lays bare the truth they fought so desperately to bury. This is where the last chapter unfolds, where the fury you harbored for so long becomes the reckoning they can neither escape nor deny. You have become more than vengeance incarnate. You are the shadow they see when they close their eyes, the cold breath that stirs their nightmares. They sought to bury you in hell, but from those flames you emerged as their reckoning, unyielding, merciless, and absolute. The game they played, where they thought you were the pawn, is over. You are the queen, the king, and the executioner all at once. And this final act is your symphony of chaos, a composition written in their fear and finalized in their downfall. In this darkness, you move with surgical precision. Every action is deliberate, every strike a calculated blow against the empire of lies and deceit they built on your suffering. You dismantle their fortress, not with brute force, but with the truth sharpened like a dagger. The whispers you planted in the shadows become shouts heard in every corner of their crumbling kingdom. Allies turn to adversaries. Friends reveal themselves as foes. Their world unravels not because you chased it down, but because the foundations were rotten, waiting only for your hand to expose the decay. The power you hold is intoxicating, but not because it is new. It is ancient and eternal. It is the power of those who refused to be broken, who wore their scars like armor, and who rose when all expected them to fall. They called you into hell, but hell became your forge. They thought to extinguish your light, but you became the inferno that consumes their night. Every betrayal they committed, every injustice they inflicted, returns to them like a relentless tide, eroding their certainty until nothing remains but ruin. But vengeance, in its purest form, is not mindless destruction. It is the art of reclaiming what was stolen, the restoration of balance in a world tipped into chaos. You walk through their ashes, not as a victor celebrating conquest, but as a sovereign restoring order. The chaos you wield is a tool, a means to an end, not an end in itself. You are the storm that cleanses, the fire that purifies. And in this cleansing, the devil's call is fulfilled, not with indiscriminate ruin, but with justice forged in fire. They scramble to save themselves, scrambling like rats in a sinking ship, but salvation slips through their fingers like smoke. The walls they built to protect themselves crumble under the weight of their own guilt and fear. They are hunted not by monsters, but by the consequences of their own choices, the broken promises, the lies told in darkness, the hearts crushed beneath the heels of their ambition. And you stand at the center of it all, the eye of the storm, calm and unyielding. The final confrontation is not a battle of fists or weapons. It is a collision of truths. The masks fall away, revealing the raw, bleeding core of who they really are. The world they crafted on deception collapses as their secrets are torn into the light. They beg, bargain, threaten, but your silence is their sentence. You do not need to answer because their own actions condemn them. Their downfall is their confession, their ruin, their truth. And you watch, not with malice, but with the cold clarity of justice served. In these moments, you realize the transformation is complete. You are no longer the person they sought to destroy. You are a force of nature, an inevitable reckoning that no denial can stop. The devil's call was never about damnation. It was about resurrection. They tried to bury you in darkness, but from that darkness, you emerged as a new kind of light, one that blinds, burns, and reveals. And this light does not forgive. It does not forget. It only demands that the truth be faced. As the dust settles and the echoes of their downfall fade, you reclaim what was yours, not just in possessions or power, but in spirit. The chains they wrapped around your soul are broken, replaced by an unbreakable will. You stand amidst the ruins, not as a survivor, but as a ruler of a new order, one forged in pain, tempered by fire, and destined to endure. The devil's call was the beginning of your story, but it is you who writes the ending. And so, the world watches, forever changed by the shadow you cast. They whisper your name with fear and respect, knowing that beneath the calm exterior lies a storm that cannot be silenced. The chaos you unleashed was not a curse, but a promise that those who betray will one day face the consequences. You are the embodiment of that promise, the living proof that hell is not a place, but a state of becoming. And in becoming, you have made them pay. The final words are yours alone, not spoken in anger, but spoken with the weight of all you have endured and overcome. They are a warning to those who dare to follow the path of betrayal, a declaration that the devil's call was no empty threat. It was a summons to reckoning, and you answered. With fire in your eyes and the strength of 1,000 storms, you show the world that from the depths of hell, a new ruler rises. Not broken, not defeated, but unstoppable. This is the end of the nightmare they tried to create, and the beginning of the reign you were destined for.